All right, guys. JR told me to do this so that you would all wake up and pay attention to me. Who wants a t-shirt? Okay, so that's not embarrassing at all. I know, right? I'm Oprah up in here. Oprah SEO. So I'm going to talk about chasing the Googlebot trail, and I'm pretty sure everybody's like, what does that mean? I speak mostly about crawling. The reason I speak about crawling the most is because it's the most important part of SEO. I said that because many of you are like, our jobs don't rely on crawling, Jori, and I'm like, yes, it does. It's where your strategy should start for everything. So that's what I'm going to talk about. First, we're going to talk about Google Search Console and the tools you can use in there. We are going to talk about entry points, and we've talked about log files, things like that, so everybody here knows what an entry point is. It's where Google's coming into the site. We're fixing technical difficulties while I'm doing this. I don't know if you've ever built a crawl map, but part of the Googlebot trail that I'm talking about is understanding how Google enters, navigates, and understands your website. But as SEOs, you guys have heard a lot of stuff today about proving our points, measurement, and being able to explain ourselves. Technical SEOs suffer from this the most, right? We're trying to get budget, we're trying to work with engineering, we're trying to work within marketing. Sometimes we have to deal with product, then we have analytics, and the list goes on and on. But we talk about it from like an enterprise perspective, and sometimes a mid-grade perspective, and sometimes for small sites. I want to talk about it from the perspective that you should be able to do things manually, you should be able to do things with tools or without tools, and use whatever you do have, because let's be honest, not everybody has access to server logs. So I'm going to be able to tell you guys about, taking some of that data, turning it into strategy after you map everything out, and how to use these maps that you get from all these tools. Because having tools for the sake of using them doesn't help anybody. Mike already talked about me. So first, like crawl stats, right? You guys are like, Jori, that was out in 2020. We all know about them. It's not a big deal. But for a lot of people it is, because you're working with clients who maybe they don't have access to their server logs, or if you want to expedite your point and get them to do what you need them to do, they need to see immediate response, and they need you to take action on it. Something we can all get access to is crawl stats. So it's an easy way to not necessarily get all the logs, but actually make your point about why you need them. So yeah, I made it a little bit dramatic, but the reason it's so dramatic is, I said this before, crawling's the most important. You want to know why I think crawling's the most important, other than, Google can't access anything without it? If you went to the Google Docs and you're using the developer tools, right, and you're reading everything, what percentage do you think crawling takes up of the Google documentation that they give to developers and technologists like us? If you take away structured data, it makes up 70% of the content provided. So 70%, right? I think that's pretty important then, that we focus on crawling. So the stats report, I'm going to go briefly into it, give you some highlights about ways to use it, little tidbits you can pull out from it, not too detailed, but if you've seen it, you go to the settings. Most of you have seen it. Okay, good, like 20% of the room. I don't know what the rest of you back there are using, but it's okay. All right, so crawl stats are going to give us things like the crawl requests, how many times Google's trying to visit and download things. The download size, how big are the pages, not a big deal. Things that I really think are going to be important, your average, your average response time, sorry. And then the other thing that I think isn't that important, but is going to be your host status. So total crawl requests. How many people think that more requests is better? Okay, so 4 people, 5 people in the room think more requests is better. So you think being crawled less is good? The rest of the room? Exactly, it depends. So a lot of times what you'll find is you come up against questions like, well, what do we want to do with our crawl budget, and why do we need all these requests, and why are you asking us for logs, and why does this matter? And the thing is there's no specific answer. You can't say, well, more requests is better, or less requests is good. But what you can do is help people understand, how do we model around the requests that we want? And that's one of the things I'm going to talk about, is how do we get to a place where we can explain what it is we want, how many requests we should expect, and then what do we do if we don't get them, and what do we do when we are? More adjustments. Okay, so part of what I tend to do, and like I said, I'm going to go through manually being able to do things, using tools, and some of you who are pretty apt to scripting, there's going to be somebody talking tomorrow about building out your own app scripts. I've done quite a few tools here that I use. If you see a tool that you like, or I tell you, hey, I built an app script for that, it's absolutely okay to find me later and say, hey, can I get access to that? Absolutely, you can. But one of the things that we want to make sure when we're looking at these crawl requests, download your data regularly, okay? There's no easy way to export this data. There's no API that's going to give it to you, so you're going to have to do it manually, unless you want to break Google rules and find a way to automatically do it with a macro. I would never do anything like that, okay? But if you do, and you need to get that data out of there, you do what you got to do. One of the other things that you're going to want to look at, your XML sitemaps. Those are your money pages. I've seen XML sitemaps that are filled with trash, but we as SEOs know we cultivate those to target the things that are specific. So you should have an XML sitemap count that's matching the requests that you have. Your indexation count, okay? If your XML sitemap is supposed to be your goal, right, that's the gold, and then you have indexation that's less than that, you are not meeting your goal. If your crawl requests do not match that freak, see what I did there? Okay. Not everybody. Some of you are not there yet, but that's okay. But if it's not matching, one of the things you want to know is, where do I dig into? These kinds of reports are going to let us know that, right? The counts aren't right. So how do we know how long that's supposed to take? I'm going to show you one of my actual clients. I filtered out a bunch of stuff, but they came to me with an indexation problem that they didn't know was an indexation problem, because what they told me was, we have a really big site, and I was like, what's really big? And they're like, like hundreds of thousands of URLs, and I was like, it's not that big, it's fine. And they're like, but Jori, we have 150,000 URLs that are supposed to be in the index. And I said, who told you they're supposed to be? And they're like, our other SEO. And I was like, get rid of that guy. You got me, right? But I'm silly if you can't tell. One of the things that I told him is, I'm going to give myself a deadline to help you guys out. So I looked at their XML sitemap. I asked them, are these your money pages? They're like, yeah, these are the money pages. I look at the indexation. You guys see there's 65,000 there. So there's probably a gap, right? Around 80,000 URLs are missing. You guys see this number 49. When you guys do your quick mental math, how many of you guys were like, it's going to take 11 days to get the rest in there? Because at the crawl rate that we have, we got 10,000 being in there. The distribution is 7 to 3. So yeah, 11 days should get us at 7,000 discovered URLs. If you thought 11 days, your math is wrong. It's not your fault. You do know how to do math. But this is recursive, right? We're going to have to take the amount that we newly discover and move them over into the ones that are getting re-indexed. And so I built a tool for that because I'm too lazy to do it manually on my own. And the estimated time I gave them was, I was like, around 50 days, I can get you fully indexed, okay? That's very powerful as a technical SEO, to be able to give someone a deadline, tell them why and how you're going to do it, and tell them where the problem area is before you even ask them, Can I get access to your crawl logs? Can I get your engineers to do something for me? You're already proving your value and your worth. So total download size, I actually don't care about this metric at all. I think it's valuable if you see that the bot is getting bogged down. But if you're getting crawled at the rate that you really expect and you're seeing the indexation there, ignore it. Now, if it's too high, if you're not getting the crawl budget that you expect, that's when I expect you to dig a little deeper into this metric, but I'm not actually going to go into that metric very much because it's mostly inconsequential. Average response time. Most people are going to look at this and think time to first byte because what do we think, right? We send the message, the byte hits, the server responds, bam, they get the byte back, and most of us consider that time to first byte. If you actually look at the definition that Google gives you in Search Console, it's not time to first byte. They actually expect the last byte to be included, and they're ignoring a bunch of other things. So it's mostly the HTML that they're looking at referencing. Now, we talked about automation and tools and everything like that. One of the things that I found is that no matter which way you slice this data and explain it to your customer or client, Google Search Console will never give you the actual data to be able to figure out how they do their average response time. If you use any external tools, you're probably going to have a problem there too. You want to know why? Because Googlebot is crawling from where it's choosing to crawl and hitting your servers wherever they're at. So the times don't match. Now, I'm going to give you one of those tidbits that I told you. I'll drop little nuggets that you guys might like. This is what I use. And the reason I use this, DOM content load, and yes, I know for everybody that's a technologist who's thinking right now, Jori, that doesn't come from the server. You are correct. It's the browser side. But it's an identical metric served from the browser, and that event fires right after your time to first byte and your page load. So after your server responds, DOM content load happens, the event triggers, so you're going to be within like micromilliseconds of your actual time. Is that accurate? I haven't been up here for 48 minutes. Psst, you didn't reset my time. So one of the things I'll tell you is it's okay to use this. I actually got chewed out in the Google forums for saying this, but it's true. I've tested it multiple times against the average response rate that's actually delivered in Search Console, and this is the thing that's going to most accurately match it. So if you're going to take anything away, empower yourselves. You can do this from the browser side and show your customers right in their face, these are the load responses and issues that we're having. This is why your average response time is important, why it's down, and let's get some things going. People like real data, real time. Host status, I told you I really don't care about this one, but I do. So here's the thing. Host status doesn't matter unless you have a problem. Google's not really going to tell you if you have a problem. That's the problem I have with this particular report, is when you have a problem, it's a 90-day problem, and it's if it's greater than 5% of your problem. How many people have 90 days to wait for a 5% problem to tell them that they need to fix their hosting? I don't think so. We can't go back in time. So don't really use this to level set any playing ground. Don't use this to try and convince them that they need to change their host. Usually it's not as problematic as it seems, but do use this if you see the red flags, because it tells you where to start digging a little deeper. So your average response time is tanking. You see that there's a host status issue. You see that it lasted longer than 10 days. It's over the 5% threshold. Now you actually know where you should go dig and dive. You know to go look at the error report, and you can look at the little blip that tells you what day it happened. That's when you're going to go into your server logs if you have them. If you don't have server logs, we all have this. We can go into the indexation report and do a URL inspection around that time for the errors that were happening. Now you can dig into the problem at the URL level, help determine it, again, without asking for too much access, because the more access we ask for, the harder the job becomes for the client for us, right? So part 2, This is a really, really short part, so don't expect like massive slides. There's like 2. But I think mapping Googlebot and its entry points is very important for everybody to understand. How are they getting in? We got tools like Screaming Frog and other tools that help you map how you might crawl it, but you really want to understand how Google's crawling and getting in and the referral URLs. So things that you're going to need to be able to do this. Again, I wrote an app script to do this because I'm too lazy, and I use ChatGPT. But your discovery and refresh reports. These are those reports that I told you do not want to use a macro to automatically download out of Google Search Console because it's against Google's rules. Your access logs, again, optional. Use Google Search Console if you need to. Your XML sitemap report, this is that thing that I told you is where all your money pages are. Your URL inspection report. I access this through Google Search Console's API. How many people use the API to regularly access the data? Awesome. Those of you who are not, the people who raise their hands are being very, very smart. Here's why they're being very, very smart. When you use the API, you get more access to the same views that you're getting in Search Console, but you don't have the ability to capture or go backwards in time. You'll get those data points at any point in time because you can actually reference the dates, send that back, and get it delivered to you. So I think it's very important for you to use Search Console. If you don't know how to use the API, ask me for the script, go to Cloud Console, activate it, and then you can use this very easily. Then the backlinks report, go Ahrefs. I think that if you don't understand what backlinks you have, you're going to have a really hard time understanding some of the referral URLs that you're getting the traffic from. These are actually more important than most people think because we talk a lot about our internal linking, but the assumption with internal linking is Google's already gotten there. One of the things that I've noticed in Search Console that's great, especially out of URL inspection, but very difficult to do at scale if you're not using the API, is how do you identify which backlinks are valuable to you versus not? When you use this tool, you'll get a table that spews out like this, beautifully presented to keep it really simple, and this is for your client as well as you. But it's going to tell you which URLs are getting that activity, so your entry paths, and it already parses out which backlinks are sending them, things like that in your referral URLs. The table was too big to span the whole screen, so there's a lot that we could scroll left to, but I can't today. So you'll get your discovered URL distribution. You're going to get your refresh, the XML, and all of this good stuff. Now, why do I think that this kind of a table is important to you? This is easy to share with your customer, but it's also easy for you to utilize to figure out where to dig deep. One of the problems here that you'll look at, that first URL, that's money, right? Like, that looks great. I got 8 backlinks, everything good is happening. If you're wondering why it says yourdomain.com, that's what I replaced my client's domain with. But I can see the crawl data. I can see that the page is okay. I can see that it's being refreshed. I can see that it's in my index, so I know that that's right. Now what you're going to look for is the flags where things aren't the way that you planned. This is why I said it's all part of your strategy. If your strategy is to get somebody deeper into the website, into a category page, you pop everything in here and your category pages have a couple of these no's, you already know there's something wrong with the category pages. Now I need to investigate the entry mapping to those. Go into the URL index report again and find out, does it have backlinks, yes or no? If it doesn't have backlinks, you might need a new entry point. Does it have internal links? Yes or no? Now you know the easy solutions to figuring out how to navigate, and once again, easily presenting the information, getting somebody to use it quickly, and not having a problem. You can also do this manually. I don't suggest it, that's why I wrote the app script, but all of these can be exported manually, and you can do the exact same thing, especially if you have a smaller site. So, I don't know if you guys have picked up on this yet, but I'm a little lazy. So I'm going to talk about multiple ways to do this, but I'm probably going to tell you the laziest way. Tools, tasks, and tactics. You got to use the right tools or bad things happen. I saw you laugh. It's funny, I know. So we've got a lot of tools. In fact, there's a lot of tools here. And I'm actually going to talk about a couple of them that are here today because they're great tools for helping you map out this crawl map. The thing that the crawl map is supposed to help you understand. Entry points, yes. Blockage points, opportunity points as well. It's hard to see when you're doing enterprise search. If you got a million URLs, can you really find the one little spot where everything's getting bogged down? Absolutely not. But what these maps can help you with is figuring out which templates, which themes, which areas and access points aren't available. So, Screaming Frog. I put it first, not because it's the best tool. I love Screaming Frog, and it's a great tool. I put it first because it's the most accessible tool that's going to give you the tools that you need. And their log analyzer is lovely. You get some okay graphics. It's free, so if you're not familiar with logs and you don't want to understand whether or not you're going to have to filter, parse, and fix them, this is a great opportunity for you to use a free tool, see how you feel about the log files, and decide whether or not you're going to use logs or ask for them at all. Because a lot of times, nobody wants to give you access anyway. Secondly, things that I love about the tool. You can pretty much filter data any way you imagine, okay? And the reason that's powerful is we're not working at one URL at a time. We're working on URL patterns. When you filter, you can get to a pattern faster. Other things that I really like is that it's really simple, right? This looks like what I build in my Excel spreadsheets all by myself, so I feel comfortable with that. A lot of executives are comfortable with that too, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, things that aren't great. If you need to razzle-dazzle your client, this is not the tool that you're going to pull the pictures from and be like, look what I did, boss. It's not that great. If your logs are malformed, and what that means is if the log lines are not coming in and they're getting bundled, if you have regular expressions that are getting fed in by, black bots, it's not going to clean that up for you. And there's not really an easy way to do that. You have to figure that out on your own. And then it can be a little much, right? If it's your first time using the tool and you're not trying to overanalyze, it's going to give you a lot more than you expect. So if you are that kind of person where you want it a little simpler, you want the visuals and everything else, I love Jet Octopus for this. It's got some great benefits. They do have a free trial. I actually talked to Serge, and he told me to tell you that it's 7 days, but if you came to this conference for limited time only, it's 14 days for you too. He did say that, for real, I swear. But things that are phenomenal. Very easy to see. Things are grouped very well. You going to give me the time? All right, I got to go faster, guys. You let me talk too slow. It supports multiple data sources. So if you're working enterprise, earlier you might have heard Philly say, you got to pay attention to where the logs are coming from. Yep. CDNs, it'll let you pull in. AWS, it'll let you pull in. All your local logs, if you have them in Datadog, you can pull in, so it's great. You can also set up custom monitoring, which I think is phenomenal. Things that aren't so great, it costs money. If you don't have deep engineering experience or access, you need a DevOps person to be able to implement this correctly. When it's implemented correctly, flawless. But if it's not, it's going to be some work. That team is really willing to do that work with you, though. The other thing is it takes a learning curve. So if you are not about adoption and you are not trying to advocate, it's going to be a tool that's more robust than everybody can use, and you won't be able to train them on it. That's the manual downloads that I don't do with macros. You can do this too. Manual charting, which I won't do, but you can draw these, and you can draw these conclusions and show people these. The thing that's not going to be so great, you're not going to be able to hit those nodes really quickly. Am I going fast enough now? All right, so I told you manual, I told you tools. This is the middle of the road. I bet you guys know what I'm going to say. I built a tool that did this for me in AppScripts, and I used ChatGPT. I actually did. And the thing is it's not beautiful, but Not every tool is beautiful. It's not perfect, but the thing is you can customize things the way that you want. So one of the things I did is I customized heat mapping into the nodes so that I can pull them out really easily. So I don't actually pay attention to any of the noise except for the little dark blobs. It's true. So, anybody a fan here? I made this one myself, so I'm very, very proud of my third eye. So now that we've gazed into the multiverse and everybody knows what's going on, how can you use some of the stuff that I gave you? And this is the stuff I'll go through really fast, but it's the most important stuff for you. So I'm glad I'm going fast for you. You can identify a lot of missed opportunities. You're going to be able to expose some of those templates. You'll be able to understand the influence your crawling traffic has on your site. And I'm actually going to skip this because I'm going to go to the stuff that actually matters. So why does it matter? Because you can build views like this. This one view, okay, has 6 opportunities for you to be able to explain from your strategic standpoint. 1, you get an easy comparison of your discovered versus your refreshed. Now you know whether or not you need to be spending more time on getting more access and availability to the bot. 2, if you're not able to do that, you can figure out that you have a crawl budget issue, really simplistically. The reason you can say that is, look, when we have refreshed and discovered down, there's less traffic. When they're up, there's more traffic. Easy to populate, very simple with the data that you've already pulled here. Indexing patterns over time. The full stack is your index, right? So if you're only indexing at 65,000 and you want to be at 145,000, add one more stack to this, make it empty, put the dotted lines in, and now you can show missed opportunity related to the traffic. Then you can project another line and say, look at all the traffic we could get if you just let me index the whole site. There's quite a few other things you can do with this, but realistically, what I'm trying to do is give you guys tools so that you can make an impact by doing less with what you've got. And I know that that sounds crazy, right? Do less. So these are some example insights that you can garner from what I just showed you. I already talked about it, but I know a lot of people like things on the slide so that they can take the pictures and take it home. So these are the tidbits there. Now, here's another opportunity. Content hubs. If it's red, it's not good. It's a dud. If it's dark green, it's a hub. It's an opportunity. You always wonder, if people are going to sit here and do all this internal linking, how do I increase my flow? You build a map and you can see the little spots where you can actually create better connectivity really quickly. This is from Screaming Frog. Any anime fans? All right, Mashal. We got to get strong with it. Did I make my time? I did it. I did it. Thank you. Thank you.